Chapter 5 of My Life: The Story of a Provincial by Anton Chekhov. Translated by Constance Garnett, 1861 to 1946. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. Chapter 5. Radish was not practical, and was not at all good at forming an estimate. He took more work than he could get through, and when calculating he was agitated, lost his head, and so was almost always out of pocket over his jobs. He undertook painting, glazing, paper hanging, and even tiling roofs, and I can remember his running about for 3 days to find tilers for the sake of a paltry job. He was a first-rate workman. He sometimes earned as much as 10 roubles a day, and if it had not been for the desire at all costs to be a master and to be called a contractor, he would probably have had plenty of money. He was paid by the job, but he paid me and the other workmen by the day, from 1 and 2 to 2 shillings a day. When it was fine and dry, we did all kinds of outside work, chiefly painting roofs. When I was new to the work it made my feet burn as though I were walking on hot bricks, and when I put on felt boots they were hotter than ever. But this was only at first. Later on I got used to it, and everything went swimmingly. I was living now among people to whom labour was obligatory, inevitable, and who worked like cart horses, often with no idea of the moral significance of labour, and indeed never using the word labour in conversation at all. Beside them, I, too, felt like a cart horse, growing more and more imbued with the feeling of the obligatory and inevitable character of what I was doing, and this made my life easier, setting me free from all doubt and uncertainty. At first everything interested me, everything was new, as though I had been born again. I could sleep on the ground and go about barefoot, and that was extremely pleasant. I could stand in a crowd of the common people and be no constraint to any one, and when a cab horse fell down in the street I ran to help it up without being afraid of soiling my clothes. And the best of it all was, I was living on my own account and no burden to any one. Painting roofs, especially with our own oil and colours, was regarded as a particularly profitable job, and so this rough, dull work was not disdained even by such good workmen as Radish. In short breeches and wasted, purple-looking legs, he used to go about the roofs looking like a stork, and I used to hear him as he plied his brush, breathing heavily and saying, "Woe, woe to us sinners!" He walked about the roofs as freely as though he were upon the ground. In spite of his being ill and pale as a corpse, his agility was extraordinary. He used to paint the domes and cupolas of the churches without scaffolding, like a young man, with only the help of a ladder and a rope, and it was rather horrible when standing on a height far from the earth. He would draw himself up erect and for some unknown reason pronounce "Lice consume grass, rust consumes iron, and lying the soul." Or, thinking about something, would answer his thoughts aloud: "Anything may happen, anything may happen." When I went home from my work, all the people who were sitting on benches by the gates, all the shopmen and boys and their employers, made sneering and spiteful remarks after me, and this upset me at first and seemed to be simply monstrous. "Better than nothing," I heard on all sides, "house painter," "yellow ochre," and none behaved so ungraciously to me as those who had only lately been humble people themselves, and had earned their bread by hard manual labour. In the streets full of shops I was once passing an ironmonger's when water was thrown over me as though by accident, and on one occasion some one darted out with a stick at me, while a fishmonger, a grey-headed old man, barred my way, and said, looking at me angrily, "I am not sorry for you, you fool. It's your father I am sorry for." And my acquaintances were for some reason overcome with embarrassment when they met me. Some of them looked upon me as a queer fish and a comic fool, others were sorry for me, others did not know what attitude to take up to me, and it was difficult to make them out. One day I met Anyuta Blagovo in a side street near Great Dvoryansky Street. I was going to work and was carrying 2 long brushes and a pail of paint. Recognizing me, Anyuta flushed crimson. "Please do not bow to me in the street," she said nervously, harshly, and in a shaking voice, without offering me her hand, and tears suddenly gleamed in her eyes. If to your mind all this is necessary, so be it. So be it, but I beg you not to meet me." I no longer lived in Great Dvoryansky Street, but in the suburb with my old nurse Karpovna, a good natured but gloomy old woman who always foreboded some harm, was afraid of all dreams, and even in the bees and wasps that flew into her room saw omens of evil. And the fact that I had become a workman, to her thinking, boded nothing good. "Your life is ruined," she would say, mournfully shaking her head. "Ruined." Her adopted son, Prokofy, a huge, uncouth, red-headed fellow of 30, with bristling moustaches, a butcher by trade, lived in the little house with her. When he met me in the passage he would make way for me in respectful silence, and if he was drunk he would salute me with all five fingers at once. He used to have supper in the evening, and through the partition wall of boards I could hear him clear his throat and sigh as he drank off glass after glass. "Mamma!" he would call in an undertone. "Well?" Karpovna, who was passionately devoted to her adopted son, would respond. "What is it, sonny?" "I can show you a testimony of my affection, Mamma. All this earthly life I will cherish you in your declining years in this vale of tears, and when you die I will bury you at my expense. I have said it, and you can believe it." I got up every morning before sunrise and went to bed early. We house painters ate a great deal and slept soundly. The only thing amiss was that my heart used to beat violently at night. I did not quarrel with my mates. Violent abuse, desperate oaths, and wishes such as "blast your eyes" or "cholera take you" never ceased all day, but nevertheless we lived on very friendly terms. The other fellows suspected me of being some sort of religious sectary, and made good-natured jokes at my expense, saying that even my own father had disowned me, and thereupon would add that they rarely went into the temple of God themselves, and that many of them had not been to confession for 10 years. They justified this laxity on their part by saying that a painter among men was like a jackdaw among birds. The men had a good opinion of me and treated me with respect. It was evident that my not drinking, not smoking, but leading a quiet, steady life pleased them very much. It was only an unpleasant shock to them that I took no hand in stealing oil, and did not go with them to ask for tips from people on whose property we were working. Stealing oil and paints from those who employed them was a house painter's custom, and was not regarded as theft. And it was remarkable that even so upright a man as Radish would always carry away a little white lead and oil as he went home after work. And even the most respectable old fellows, who owned the houses in which they lived in the suburb, were not ashamed to ask for a tip, and it made me feel vexed and ashamed to see the men go in a body to congratulate some nonentity on the commencement or the completion of the job, and thank him with degrading servility when they had received a few coppers. With people on whose work they were engaged they behaved like wily courtiers, and almost every day I was reminded of Shakespeare's Polonius. "I fancy it is going to rain," the man whose house was being painted would say, looking at the sky. "It is, there is not a doubt it is," the painters would agree. "I don't think it is a rain cloud, though. Perhaps it won't rain after all." "No, it won't, your honour. I am sure it won't." But their attitude to their patrons behind their backs was usually one of irony. And when they saw, for instance, a gentleman sitting in the verandah reading a newspaper, they would observe, "He reads the paper, but I dare say he has nothing to eat." I never went home to see my own people. When I came back from work I often found waiting for me little notes, brief and anxious, in which my sister wrote to me about my father: that he had been particularly preoccupied at dinner and had eaten nothing, or that he had been giddy and staggering, or that he had locked himself in his room and had not come out for a long time. Such items of news troubled me, I could not sleep, and at times even walked up and down Great Dvoryansky Street at night by our house, looking in at the dark windows and trying to guess whether everything was well at home. On Sundays my sister came to see me, but came in secret, as though it were not to see me but our nurse. And if she came in to see me she was very pale, with tear-stained eyes, and she began crying at once. "Our father will never live through this," she would say. "If anything should happen to him God grant it may not your conscience will torment you all your life. It's awful, Misail. For our mother's sake, I beseech you, reform your ways." "My darling sister," I would say, "how can I reform my ways if I am convinced that I am acting in accordance with my conscience? Do understand." "I know you are acting on your conscience, but perhaps it could be done differently somehow, so as not to wound anybody." "Ah, holy saints!" the old woman sighed through the door. "Your life is ruined. There will be trouble, my dears, there will be trouble." End of Chapter 5. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine.